Hash scene. Dustin echoes, EXT. Country house Mies de Clara. 31. Sits on the porch of her mother's house, cradling her 2-year-old daughter, Lily. The dry wind carries the scent of red earth and eucalyptus. She stares down a dusty road leading to the small town of Dry Creek. A nameless unease prickles her skin. She remembers her father, Samuel, disappearing when she was only 3. The smell of diesel fuel on his clothes. The deep rumble of his laughter on Sundays. INT. Country house Mies, continuous. The phone rings, shattering the afternoon silence. Lily stirs, whimpering softly. Clara hesitates before answering, a strange feeling crawling up her spine. A formal, distant male voice answers. Mrs. Clara Santos, this is Sheriff Hank Miller, from Three Hearts. Do you have a moment to talk? Clara's heart pounds. Calls from the police rarely bring good news. Yes, officer. Go ahead. It's about your father, Samuel Santos. We've found some things that may interest you. The world seems to stop. Clara feels the blood drain from her face, her hands trembling as she clutches the phone. My father? But he disappeared almost 30 years ago. Yes, ma'am. That's why I need you to come here. I can't give details over the phone, but it's important. EXT. Highway day. 2 hours later, Clara drives down Highway 381, Lily asleep in the back seat. The familiar landscape rushes past, unnoticed. Her mind keeps returning to that September night in 1976, when her mother Teresa waited in vain for her husband's return. Samuel had gone on a routine trip, Chicago to Denver, and simply vanished. The last clue, a stop at the Southern Star gas station near Three Hearts, where the attendant remembered fueling Samuel's blue truck around 11 o'clock that night. INT. Sheriff's Office. The sheriff's office is an old building, with peeling paint and the characteristic smell of old paper and stale coffee. Sheriff Miller, a man in his 50s with graying hair and tired eyes, welcomes Clara into his office. Lily quietly plays with a rag doll. Mrs. Santos, I'll be straight with you. Yesterday, during road work on Highway 381, workers found a truck buried on an abandoned property, about 6 miles from the Southern Star gas station. Clara gasps. Was it his? The license plate matches the records. A blue Scania, 1974 model. But the strange thing is, he pauses, studying her face. The truck was in perfect condition, as if it had been buried yesterday. And my father? There was no body in the truck, ma'am. But we found this. Miller slides a small wooden box across the desk. Clara opens it with trembling hands, revealing a yellowed sealed letter, addressed to her in Samuel's familiar handwriting. Next to it, a photo of her at 3, smiling in her father's arms, and a small strange key made of an unfamiliar metal. The letter was sealed. We didn't open it. It's addressed to you. Clara breaks the seal. Samuel's script, still clear after almost 3 decades, dances before her eyes. My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, then they found me. I can't explain everything now, but you need to know that everything I did was for you and your mother. The key unlocks something important. Seek out Brother Michael at the Sanctuary of Divine Providence, in Purdunes. He will know what to do. Trust no one else. Daddy loves you forever. P.S. What seems like death may only be the beginning. Clara reads the letter 3 times, before looking up at the sheriff. Sanctuary of Divine Providence. I've never heard of it. I know the place. It's a secluded religious community in the mountains, near Purdunes. Kind of different. They don't have much contact with the outside world. Different how? Miller hesitates. Let's just say they follow various particular interpretations of the Bible. There are rumors they practice unconventional rituals. Clara puts the letter and photo in her pocket, but keeps the key in her palm. The metal is warm, almost pulsing with life. I need to go there. Mrs. Santos, with all due respect, maybe it's best to let the past be. 30 years is a long time, and those religious groups, sometimes it's dangerous to get involved with them. But Clara's mind is made up. That night, after leaving Lily with a neighbor, she drives along the winding roads, leading to the Purdunes Mountains. The landscape grows wilder, more isolated, with each mile. The GPS lost signal long ago. She follows only the vague direction she got in town. It's almost midnight when she finally sees the iron gates of the Sanctuary of Divine Providence. Two stone towers rise against the starlit sky, and Clara can see faint lights flickering beyond the walls. A distant bell tolls 12 times, and a shiver runs down her spine. A tall, thin man, in a simple brown robe, opens the gate. His eyes are a piercing, almost hypnotic blue. "Clara Santos," he says, not as a question, but as recognition. "I am Michael. We've been expecting you." Expecting. "I only learned about this place today." Michael smiles, a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Time is an illusion, child. Come, there's much to show you." Clara followed him across a courtyard of worn stones, surrounded by low buildings of colonial architecture. The place had a timeless air, as if centuries hadn't passed through it. The scent of incense and strange herbs hung in the night air, mixed with something else, something organic and unsettling that she couldn't identify. "My father was here?" she asked, her voice sounding small in the silence. Samuel was more than a visitor. He was chosen. They stopped before a small chapel, its walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to move in the candlelight. Miguel gestured for her to sit on a rustic wooden bench. "Before I show you what the key unlocks, you need to understand some things about your father." Samuel wasn't just a trucker, Clara. He was a seeker. He looked for answers to questions most people don't even know exist. Clara clutched the key in her hand. What kind of answers? About the nature of life, death, existence beyond the veil that separates the worlds. Samuel found with us something he'd been searching for a long time. The possibility of transcending the limitations of mortal flesh. Miguel's words grew stranger, but Clara felt inexplicably drawn to them. There was something hypnotic about his voice, something that disarmed her natural defenses. "He didn't die, did he?" she asked, almost whispering. Death is a limited word to describe what Samuel experienced. He underwent a transformation, an ascension. Miguel rose and walked to a stone altar at the back of the chapel. Clara followed, noticing her own footsteps echoing strangely in the space, as if the sound was being distorted. On the wall behind the altar, there was a small niche, with an intricate lock, adorned with the same symbols that decorated the walls. "The key," Miguel said, extending his hand. Clara hesitated. Something in her gut screamed at her not to hand over the key, but curiosity and the desperation for answers were stronger. She placed the strange metal object in Miguel's palm. The key fit perfectly into the lock, turning with a smooth click. The niche opened, revealing a small compartment containing a glass vial with a golden luminescent liquid and another envelope. "Samuel's last gift to you," Miguel said, taking out the vial. "He wanted you to have the same opportunity he had." Clara opened the envelope. This time, Samuel's handwriting was shakier, more urgent. "Clara, if Miguel offered you eternal communion, accept it. It's the only way we can meet again. But be warned, once you drink, there's no turning back. The transformation is permanent. Choose wisely. Your daddy who loves you beyond life and death." Transformation. Clara looked at Miguel, who held the vial as if it were a treasure. "What kind of transformation?" "The same your father experienced. Liberation from the limitations of the physical body. Communion with higher forces. Eternal life, Clara. True eternal." For a moment, Clara let herself be carried away by the possibility. Seeing her father again. Having the answers she'd been seeking for 3 decades. But then she thought of Marina, her daughter sleeping at the neighbor's, waiting for her mother to return. "And if I drink this, what will happen to me?" Miguel brought the vial closer to her lips. "You will join us, our eternal family, then. And eventually when she's ready, you can bring your daughter too." Something in Miguel's tone set off all the alarms in Clara's mind. She took a step back. "Marina? Why mention her?" "Because that's how it works, child. The transformation is more effective." Samuel was paving the way for both of you. Clara felt nausea rising in her stomach. "My father would never do that. He loved us too much to. He loved you so much he wanted to ensure you'd be together forever. But you grew up far from us, far from the truth. We need to correct that." Suddenly, Clara realized she was no longer alone with Miguel. In the chapel, hooded figures had emerged from the shadows, silently surrounding her. Their faces weren't visible, but she could feel eyes watching her from within the hoods. "Where is my father?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Miguel smiled again, and this time the smile was predatory. "He's here. He's always been, just as you've always belonged here." One of the figures approached, removing its hood. Clara choked back a scream. The face that stared back at her was familiar, yet horrifying in its familiarity. It was Samuel, or something that had been Samuel. His eyes were completely white, without pupils, and his skin had a waxy pallor, almost translucent. When he smiled, Clara saw that his teeth had been replaced by something that looked like twisted metal. "My girl," said the thing that had been her father, his voice like the whisper of wind through dry bones. "You came." Clara ran. She burst through the chapel door and across the courtyard, her feet pounding on the stones, as inhuman screams echoed behind her. The iron gate was locked, but Clara climbed the barbed wire fence, cutting her hands and arms. Warm blood streamed from her fingers as she ran down the dark road, only the moonlight illuminating her path. Behind her, she could hear the steps of her pursuers. Many steps, more than there had been figures, and sounds that weren't human. Growls and shrieks that made her stomach churn. Clara ran until her lungs burned, until her legs trembled, until the dawn began to lighten the horizon. Only when she spotted the first houses of Perdons did she stop, gasping for breath and bleeding. In the town square's payphone, she called the police. But when officers arrived at the Sanctuary of Divine Providence 2 hours later, they found only ruins, collapsed walls, broken tiles, vegetation growing through what remained of the buildings, as if the place had been abandoned for decades. "It's not possible," Clara murmured to the sheriff accompanying her. "I was here a few hours ago. The place was alive." "Ma'am, according to our records, this property has been abandoned since 1978. The last owner was a Miguel Santos. Curiously, the same last name as yours. He and his religious community simply vanished one night, leaving everything behind." Clara felt the world spin around her. Santos, Miguel Santos. Could it be possible? That afternoon, back at the sheriff's office in Three Hearts, she asked to see the files on her father's disappearance. Leafing through the yellowed documents, she found something that made her stop. A photo of the religious community from 1976, taken by a local journalist weeks before the disappearance. There in the center of the image was Miguel, the same Miguel she had encountered, not a day older. And beside him, smiling for the camera, was Samuel. Clara then understood that her father hadn't been a victim. He had been an accomplice, perhaps even the leader. The letter, the key, the elaborate plan to bring her to the sanctuary. It had all been orchestrated decades ago. If you're following this story and feeling the same chills as Clara, you need to subscribe to our channel right now and hit the notification button. Stories like this, that delve deep into the most disturbing mysteries and the truths we'd rather not face, are exactly what you'll find here every week. Don't miss the chance to explore with us the darkest corners of human nature. Your subscription helps us keep bringing these narratives that stick in your mind for days. But Clara's story wouldn't end. That night, alone at home with Marina, she found one last surprise. Inside her mother's dresser drawer, kept with antique jewelry and important documents, was an envelope she had never seen before. Her name was written on the outside, in Teresa's handwriting. "My dearest daughter, if you're reading this, it means they finally found you. I beg your forgiveness for never telling the truth, but it was the only way to protect you. Samuel didn't disappear that night. He chose to leave with us. Yes, with us because I was also part of the group. But when I saw what they were doing to the children, when I understood they wanted you too, I ran away. I changed our names, our history, our whole life. You are not Clara Santos' daughter. Your real name is Esperanza Miguel Sabula. Your real name is Esperanza Miguel Santos. And Miguel is your older brother. I burned all the documents, all the photos, erased all traces. But I knew one day they would return. There's money hidden in the back of the closet. False documents, passports, Take Marina and run. Run and never stop running, because they never stop searching. Clara Esperanza let the letter fall from her trembling hands. Repressed memories began to return like fragments of a nightmare. A blue-eyed boy who sang strange songs to lull her to sleep. Nightly rituals with people dressed in white. The bitter taste of medicines that made her forget. A soft sound at the front door made her freeze. Slow, deliberate footsteps. A polite knock, almost courteous. Esperanza, came Miguel's familiar voice through the wood. I know you're in there. Let's talk, little sister. There's so much we need to settle. Clara scooped Marina into her arms and ran to the back bedroom. Through the window, she could see more figures surrounding the house. Tall, thin silhouettes that moved with an inhuman grace. You can't run forever, Miguel continued. We are family. We are eternal. And Marina has the same gift as you. The same purity our father saw in you. With Marina crying softly in her arms, Clara threw open the bedroom window and jumped into the backyard. Her bare feet touched the cold grass, and she ran towards the car, the keys already in her hand. The engine sputtered once, twice. In the rearview mirror, Clara saw Miguel calmly walking out the front door, unhurried, as if he knew there was no need to rush. On the third try, the car started. Clara slammed the accelerator, the wheels spinning on the loose dirt before gaining traction on the road. But as she drove through the early morning, Marina sleeping beside her, Clara knew Miguel was right. She couldn't run forever. And worse, looking at her daughter's angelic face, she could see features she now recognized. The same piercing blue eyes, the same crescent-shaped birthmark on her forehead. Marina wasn't just her daughter. She was also a Miguel Santos. The road stretched ahead, dark and uncertain. Clara didn't know where to go, but she knew she had to keep moving. Because there were things in the darkness that never stopped hunting. And some families were prisons, from which no distance could free her. In the rearview mirror, she could have sworn she saw lights approaching. Lights that moved too fast to be normal cars, in patterns that defied the laws of physics. Clara pressed the accelerator even harder, and drove into the darkness, carrying in her arms both her salvation and her curse. Because some truths, once discovered, changed everything, and there was no going back. The fuel was running low when she finally stopped at a secluded gas station on the roadside. It was the same kind of place where it all began for Samuel, decades ago. Clara looked around, paranoia growing in her chest, but the place seemed genuinely deserted. Inside the convenience store, a young clerk yawned behind the counter. He looked up as she entered, Marina cradled in her arms. Long night, he asked, noticing her disheveled appearance. Something like that, Clara murmured, grabbing basic supplies from the shelves. Water, canned food, diapers for Marina. Her hands still trembled. You know, the clerk said as she paid. You remind me of someone. A woman who used to stop by here years ago. She also traveled with a young child. Always seemed like she was running from something. Clara froze. What woman? Oh, that was a long time ago. She just stopped showing up one day. But there was something in her eyes, the same thing I see in yours. Like she was carrying a weight nobody else could see. And the child? The clerk scratched his head. Funny you should ask. The child had the same blue eyes as your daughter. Eyes that seemed too old for her face. Clara left the store at a brisk pace, Marina still asleep in her arms. But as she was filling her car with gas, she noticed something that made her stop. On the gas station wall, half hidden by layers of old posters and faded advertisements, was a small, yellowed photograph. It was her mother, Teresa, holding a child who could only be herself. But they weren't alone in the picture. Behind them, barely visible in the shadow, was the familiar silhouette of a tall man. Miguel. Clara tore the photo from the wall and turned it over. On the back, in shaky handwriting, it read, "To whoever comes after us, there is no safe place. They always find you. The only hope is to break the cycle." In that moment, Clara understood a terrible truth. Her mother hadn't escaped. None of the women in the Miguel Santos family had. They only passed a curse on, generation after generation, in an eternal dance of hunt and flight. But maybe there was another way.
Clara looked at Marina, still sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the weight of the legacy she carried in her blood. And then she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of continuing to run, she turned the car around and started driving back to Dry Creek. Not to surrender, but to confront. Because sometimes, the only way to break a cycle was to face it head on. The house where she'd grown up was dark when she arrived, but Clara could sense presences waiting in the shadows. Miguel was there, as were the other hooded figures, all waiting patiently for her return. Clara got out of the car with Marina in her arms and walked to the porch where, just 2 days before, she had rocked her daughter without a suspicion. Now, with the truth burning in her chest like fire, she turned to face the shadows. "I know who you are," she said, her voice steady, despite the fear. "And I know what you want, but you're not going to have it." Miguel emerged from the darkness, his smile the same as always, cold, predatory, familiar. "Hope, you finally understand. I understand our family is a curse. I understand you feed on innocence, on purity, on children who can't defend themselves. And I understand that someone needs to make this stop. And how do you intend to do that?" Miguel's voice held cruel amusement. "We are immortal, little sister. We are eternal. Even if you destroy us, we will return. We always return." Clara kissed Marina's forehead, breathing in her daughter's sweet scent. "Maybe, but not this time." She pulled from her pocket an object she had found in her mother's house, a small glass vial containing a clear liquid. On the faded label, written in Teresa's handwriting, "For when there are no more choices, poison." Miguel laughed. "You think death will rid you of us? Death is just another form of communion. Hope. You'll join us anyway." "Not poison," Clara said, uncapping the vial. "Holy water. The real deal, from the Vatican. Mom kept it all these years, waiting for the right moment." The smile vanished from Miguel's face. The other figures began to retreat, hissing like snakes. "This won't work," Miguel said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. "We are part of you. We are in your blood." "I know," Clara said. "That's why I'm not just going to take a sip." Before Miguel could move, Clara drank the entire contents of the vial. The liquid burned her throat like fire, radiating heat throughout her body. Marina started to cry, as if she could feel her mother's pain. Clara fell to her knees, but kept Marina safe in her arms. Around her the hooded figures began to scream, high-pitched inhuman sounds that pierced the night. Miguel stumbled backward, his features contorting in agony. "What did you do?" he growled. "I broke the cycle," Clara murmured, feeling her strength draining away. "If I die purified, you can no longer touch me. And if you can't touch me, you can't touch Marina through me." Golden light began to emanate from Clara's body, growing brighter with each passing second. The hooded figures dissipated like smoke in the wind, their screams fading into the distance. Miguel was the last to vanish, his blue eyes fixed on Clara until the very end. "This isn't over," were his last words. "It never ends. For us it is," Clara whispered. She used her last strength to place Marina on the porch away from her body, that now shone like a star. The child cried, reaching for her mother, but Clara knew she couldn't touch her again. The purification was too violent. It could hurt her. When the neighbors arrived, drawn by the light and the screams, they found only Marina crying alone on the porch. Clara had vanished, leaving only a golden mark on the wooden planks, a mark that would never completely disappear, even decades later. Marina grew up with no memory of that night, raised by a loving adoptive family in a distant city. Sometimes, when the wind blew hard, she dreamt of a kind-eyed woman singing lullabies. And sometimes, deep in her soul she could feel an invisible protection, as if someone were always watching over her. The cycle had been broken, but at a price only a mother would be willing to pay. Clara had found the only way to save her daughter from the family curse, sacrificing herself to create a barrier of light that not even the ancient creatures could penetrate. And somewhere between life and death, between the human and the divine, Clara continued to watch, ensuring her daughter grew up free from the shadows that had haunted the Santos family for generations. Sometimes true love demands the ultimate sacrifice, and sometimes that sacrifice is the only thing capable of breaking chains that seemed eternal.